Hey everyone, this is JG. I'm talking Eternal Evolution, and tonight I have some more game mechanic breakdowns for you. So, first off, let me say I know I've been off for a little while, had a family vacation and some work stress and things, so I haven't made a video for a little while. This is actually some data mining that I did quite a while back, but I just never had a chance to put it into a slide deck and make the graphs and all of that. But I wanted to go ahead and share this. So tonight we're talking about offensive damage calculations. So I've shared things before on the defense formula and how defense and damage reduction work. Tonight we're talking the other end of the spectrum. Your attack stat, crit damage, damage amplification, and skills, and how all of those mechanics interact. So here is the test harness that I used. I took Sorietta and put them into Disa Caves. The total stats that I had on the build were 42k attack after all modifiers, 173% crit damage, 22% damage amplification, and then compared the basic attack versus the energy skill. The energy skill has each psionic sphere dealing 204% of attack, plus the exclusive equip on Sorietta grants an additional ability that it increases that by 115%. So did a bunch of measurements on that, and here is what I came up with. As it turns out, although defense research took me a long time and I still don't completely understand it, offense research was much simpler. Basically, I gathered 4 data points and everything looked exactly the way you would expect it to, and so the offensive formula appears to be much, much simpler than the defense formula. So basically 4 data points that I gathered here: basic attack with no crit, basic attack with a crit, energy skill, no crit, energy skill with a crit. And these are the numbers that I came up with. So there's a couple things that you can see here. So the factor between non-crit and crit was right at 173%, 1.73x. And similarly, the difference between the basic and the energy skills, either with or without crit, was a consistent factor of 3.18, 318%. Comparing that to the test harness, we saw a 73% increase in crits versus non-crits. That lines up exactly with this 173% crit damage effect that we saw. So there's a clear multiplicative effect on that influences how crit damage works. For the energy skill, we saw that difference of 318%. That is very close to 204% plus 115%, which is 319%. And so the difference from a basic attack was right at 318%. So what that tells us is that a basic attack is dealing 100% attack damage. Another thing this tells us is, at least in the case of Sorietta, this exclusive stacks additively with the energy skill. I wouldn't assume that that's going to be the case across all heroes, since all of their exclusives are unique to them, but that's at least what I found for Sorietta. The final interesting thing here is that 22% damage amplification did not throw off these ratios above. So critically, what this means is that damage amplification is multiplicative with everything else. So, if your base attack were 122% and then the energy skill were just additive on top of that, the ratio we would see between the energy skill and the base skill would be very different. Since we didn't see that, we know that damage amplification is multiplicative. So putting all that together, we have a very simple and straightforward damage formula. You've got your base attack times a skill-based multiplier times your damage amplification percentage times crit damage percentage if you deal a crit. What do we mean by skill multipliers? So that's the advertised multiplier from the skill description. If you're talking a basic hit, it's 100% of attack. Otherwise, it will say something like this deals 300% of attack, or 200% of attack, or 800% of attack. That is the number that you're looking at. Make sure to take in the clauses from exclusives and from talents that add to this in any way. And as I said, it is hero dependent whether those bonuses from these other sources are going to be additive or multiplicative. I mentioned that Sorietta, I saw an additive bonus. I've also seen a multiplicative bonus on one of the other heroes that I tested. Now, I did do one last set of tests because there was one other question I had about damage dealing. What about defense-based champions? So Artis and Crete, for instance, have skills that indicate they deal some percentage of defense when they are dealing damage. So one of my questions has been, their basic attack, does their basic attack also use defense and not attack? So I did a little bit of testing here, and it certainly does appear that Artis's basic attack scales with attack. The conclusive test I did here was I significantly increased Artis's defense. It did not change the damage from the basic attack noticeably, although it did change the damage from the skills noticeably. I will say there is something there that also doesn't quite add up. So he has multiple skills that deal damage based on defense. His energy skill is around 800% multiplier, and he has another one that's 480% plus a 20% multiplicative kicker. And the ratio between those was exactly what you would expect. And so they're clearly doing what they advertised. However, looking at the value of his base defense times 800% versus his base attack times 100%, the ratio between that basic attack and that energy skill did not quite add up. Actually, the defense-based attacks were dealing significantly more damage than we would expect based on the ratio of his defense and attack. That is a pretty niche mechanic there. We only have, I think, the two vanguards of Artis and Crete who currently deal defense-based damage. So this is not something I'm really planning on delving too deeply into. I don't think it significantly modifies how I would build either one of them. So I don't plan to research that further, but did want to flag that in case you were curious, that something is not quite right in the multipliers there. So that is basically it. We have a nice straightforward formula for calculating damage. And this means you should be able to do a pretty straightforward calculation of, is it better to add crit rate, crit damage, or attack on a particular hero? I will eventually work that into my calculator spreadsheet and share an updated version of that so that you can do the quick analysis of, which gloves are going to do the most for you, attack, crit rate, or crit damage. That is it for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you like more of this mathematical analysis content. Thank you for watching. JG out.